Welcome to the Butterfly Effect. I'm Chris Horner. This is stage 17 of the 25 Tour de France, brought to you by Baker Tilly. Big shout out to Baker Tilly for sponsoring every episode of the Butterfly Effect for the 25 Tour de France. Now let's take a look at today's stage. 160 kilometers, one sprint at about 110 kilometers ago, two climbs, one at 95, one just there under at, call it 45 kilometers ago. So we got a little bit of action on today's stage to look out for. But in general, if you went to bed last night, you thought for sure it was a sprinter stage. If we look at that first category 4 climb, though, we start seeing that it says it's 5.5%. When we get to it live on stage, they call it 6.5%. 5.5 and 6.5 is a big time difference when you're talking about climbing for guys that are non-climbers. I always say once you hit 6%, that's when a climb really starts to take effect. And so at 5.5, it's a little bit soft. 6.5, it's a little bit hard. So I don't know which it is because one says one thing and the race course says another. But when they get on that climb, they're certainly going to show some 7 and 8% sections. So I'm going to call that first climb 6.5% like they listed live. That means that the sprinters need to be able to get over this climb, but it comes at 95 kilometers to go and it's only about 3.5, 4 kilometers long. So it's a little bit hard, but not real hard. That means that this is possibly the last sprinter stage. Johnny Milan said it in his interview. He also said in his interview that he'd like to keep the race leader's green jersey. Okay, if you want to keep the race leader's green jersey, you can't be racing like we saw yesterday where Johnny Milan was covering attacks all over the place on his own and his teammates were MIA. I mean MIA, complete knuckleheads throughout the stage. Johnny Milan, I did not call you a knucklehead on yesterday's stage. I called all your teammates. I called your director sportif. I called your sponsors. I called anybody that's associated with Lidl Trek knuckleheads for not putting their teammates on the front and having Johnny Milan covering attacks yesterday. Well, today's stage, let's get in and find out what happens on what could be the last sprinter stage of the 25 Tour de France. Pure sprinter stage anyways. Well, when we get to kilometer 0, bam, attack start away. Wout van Aert's going up the road, and he's got Quinn Simmons in and around him. I'm thinking, Quinn Simmons, are you going to start taking a pull or are you going to sit on these guys? Well, Quinn Simmons starts learning how to race his bike correctly. He starts sitting on these moves. It starts going up the road with two different groups, and Lidl Trek's got guys in both groups and guys at the front of the peloton back there. We get like a 20-rider group kind of going away from the peloton, kind of sort of, a little bit of a gap. And Trek have multiple riders in there, but Johnny Milan's not one of them. This is the way you want to do it. You don't want to get in the break. I've heard other commentators, Peacock, talking about how Johnny Milan needs to get into the break. And I've heard multiple times where Johnny Milan needs to be in the break. And we saw it yesterday where Johnny Milan was trying to get in the break. You don't want to get in the break because if you break the #1 rule on the butterfly effect and you're left without teammates, you cannot control the stage. You're at the mercy of how other guys control the stage if they have multiple numbers. So Johnny Milan has done everything perfect. That 20-rider group gets brought back. Lidl Trek is racing marvelous, guys. Marvelous. When we see the break of the day go up the road, only about 5-6 kilometers at the start of the stage, we see Abrahamsen in there from X. We'll see Albanese in there for EF Education, Bergerdo for Total, and Quentin Pasteur for EF Education. 4 riders. And now look at the back of the peloton. 4 Lidl Trek riders on the front of the peloton and Pseudo Quickstep. Because Pseudo Quickstep has Tim Miller. He can't climb either, but he can sprint. Johnny Milan and Tim Miller are the best sprinters in the world and the best sprinters at the Tour de France. That's why you see the teams at the front. Remember yesterday when it was going curb to curb and there's only UAE team Emirates at the front? That's not the case today because Lidl Trek have put their thinking cap on and listened to Chris Horner up on the butterfly effect. So they're doing marvelous job. We'll see that one Ineos rider, Axel Lawrence, tries to jump across the gap. Sometimes it could work, sometimes you could get lucky, but this is a sprinter stage. I don't know if you want to try this, especially when the gap's already up to about 1.5 minutes when Axel Lawrence is trying to go across the gap. Eventually, he's going to sit up and come back, and it was his director sportif that told him to come back on the radio, too. So, Ineos director sportif, I don't know if I agree with him, but everything's back together minus the 4 riders. We're coming in the sprint line points competition up front. Abrahamsen grabs maximum sprint points, but that's not what we want to watch. We want to see what's happening in the back, where Lidl Trek have been exceptional with Pseudo Quickstep riding the front of the peloton. Quinn Simmons was riding the front of the peloton. Thibaut Nice was riding the front of the peloton. They've done a fabulous job. Now we're coming into the sprint points competition there, the intermediate sprint. Johnny Milan grabs maximum points that's left over, 5th place, 11 points. When we started this stage, Tadej Pogacar was only 11 points behind Johnny Milan. Now Johnny just doubled it right here with this 5th. Now, this is the way they should have been racing yesterday. They continue to ride the front. Marvelous work. We're coming into about 98, 100 kilometers to go. Ineos get on the front. They start driving. I'm like, oh no, what are you guys doing? Are you guys knuckleheads again? You had Axel Laurent back there attacking, going solo, couldn't make the break. Not such a bad move, but it's not a good day to be in the break anyway. It's a sprinter stage. But when we start this climb with the group up front, the 4 riders with about a minute and a half lead on the peloton being led by Ineos driving it in this climb, the race radio comes on. Remember, the race radio always came on a few kilometers before when you're watching it live. So the race radio comes on and the director sportif says, let's try it, let's do it. Otherwise, we're just wasting our time back here. We're just in the bunch for no reason at all. No. Director Sportif of Ineos, you're not wasting your time. You're saving your legs because tomorrow's a mountain stage. Because you have a rider in your team, our Ensman, that's won a mountain stage here at the Tour de France, and everyone else needs to save their legs as good as they can because this is a sprinter stage, but Ineos are drilling it. G. Thomas, 37, 39 years old, I can't even remember. He's up there. He's almost as old as me, and he's still racing at the front of the peloton right now, but this is a knucklehead move, and he's too old to be making this mistake. Quinn Simmons, racing marvelous. Quinn Simmons, you've been money. I have never doubted the power of your legs, and after today's stage, I might not be able to doubt your tactics either because you have flipped them all around. You are racing perfectly on the first mountain KOM climb here of stage 17 of the Tour de France. He's got it locked down in position. G. Thomas finally blows. The next rider, Axel Laurent, is up there driving it. Quinn Simmons is in perfect position. We start looking at the back of the peloton. It's a little bit wide back there too. So you know that Johnny Milan, that's not at the very front where it's a little strung out, but he's at the back. You can't see him in the picture, so don't bother looking for it. But when you know Johnny Milan's back there in the middle of the peloton somewhere, that means he's getting a good rest. If you're at the front, that's where you want to be if you want to make the break and follow moves. But Johnny doesn't want to follow moves. He learned that mistake already on the last 2 stages here at the Tour de France. So he's in a good position, and Quinn Simmons is in an excellent position covering all the attacks when they start immediately from Ineos throwing in some attacks with Tobias Foss up there. Foss doesn't go anywhere. Quinn Simmons has got marvelous legs. The next attack's coming from Movistar. As Movistar's throwing an attack, the 4 riders are going over the top of the KOM with, we'll give it 30, 40 second gap on the peloton. With those guys going over, we go back and look at the peloton. It's starting to blow up back there. And we're going to see Movistar go over the top with Quinn Simmons hot on the heels. He's right there locked in, perfect position, and he's got other teammates with him. But when we see the split at the back of the peloton, it's the sprinters back there, and Johnny Milan's getting dropped. He's got one teammate in front of him. That's Thibaut Nice. Thibaut Nice is driving it right now, and you know they're cresting near the top of the climb because I already told you the other guys went over. So these guys are a few seconds off the back, 20, 30 seconds that they're losing at the top of this climb. But Trek have Thibaut Nice on the front, Johnny Milan, and there's other sprinters locked in this group like Dylan Groenewegen. He's in this group too. Up in between the peloton of GC favorites and Johnny Milan, there's another group I want to show you going down a descent where Tim Malaire's in that group. So we go back to the Johnny Milan group and we go over the top of the KOM, and I back it up just a hair one more time. Simone Consoni was at the back of that Johnny Milan group because he can't do any work up there. He's hurting. He crashed a couple stages ago, if I remember correctly. Certainly crashed. I just don't remember if it's 2 stages or 1 stage ago. 2, I believe. So he's at the back. Thibaut Nice is blown, and Johnny Milan's attacking over the top of the KOM. He's panicking. This will be a mistake right here. You don't want to panic if you're Johnny Milan, and you got teammates that you can trust. If you trust your teammates, you do not need to panic at this moment because Quinn Simmons is doing a marvelous job up front. Even though Movistar are throwing in attacks left, right, and center down the descent, Quinn Simmons, Jasper Stuyven, is doing a great job. Tom Squinge is up there. He's doing a great job of covering attacks left, right, and center. Behind Johnny Milan's group, he'll sit up. He'll go back to his group. Then they'll start driving there because they got other sprinters in this group, so they'll catch the Tim Malaire group. Now you got Soudal Quickstep's Tim Malaire there. You got Johnny Milan. You got Jaco Lula back there. That got Dylan Groenewegen. They want to be in the front group too. So these guys are going to start working together. And when things start to slightly become that they might need a little bit more power from the front GC group there, they're going to drop back Tom Squints. Tom Squin's going to drop back after things kind of settle down a little bit, and they know there's a 20-second gap still back there to Johnny Milan. He might need some help. So they drop back Tom Squints. Tom Squints starts pulling back there, I would imagine. Don't remember seeing it on camera. But then next, just before the group back there catches, they're going to pull out 2 more. Quinn Simmons and Jasper Stuyven are going to drop out of that front group of GC favorites because they're teammates of Johnny Milan here on stage 17 of the Tour de France. It's a magnificent teamwork stage right here for Lidl Trek as they drop the 2 riders out. Quinn Simmons is pulling on the front group back there. Jasper Stuyven's going to close the gap at about 76 kilometers to go in today's stage. Everything's wrapped up with the exception. We still got 4 riders off the front, and that gap's going to start to extend back out. We'll call it minute, 10 seconds. Don't worry about it at this moment. With Liddell Trek taking control of the peloton and Pseudo Quickstep back on the front. If I back the film up just a hair, I want to show you Albacine de Koonik was pulling a little bit on the front, two-door cycling before Johnny Milan's team got back up there. Now we got Liddell Trek on the front, Pseudo Quickstep's pulling on the front again. Quinn Simmons is going back to work. Thibaut Nice is back at the front. Max Schachmann from Pseudo Quickstep's doing an amazing job. These guys will control the 4 leaders when we come into the second climb. The only second climb here, it's a category 4, but it's not 6.5%. This one's under 4 kilometers long, so it's not monster steep. We come into this climb with the group having 110 to make up to the 4 riders in front, and then we see Wout van Aert throwing an attack. The big guy from Visma Bike's throwing an attack as he's going up the road. Quinn Simmons is pulling the peloton. Now this reminds me of 2022 Tour de France Stage 6. Probably the biggest knuckleheadism move I've ever seen with Stage 6 of the 22 Tour de France. Wout van Aert going up the road in the race leader's jersey while 4 teams were back there chasing, and Wout van Aert was with who? Quinn Simmons was who he was with on that Stage 6 of the 22 Tour de France. When they got caught, Wout van Aert lost the race leader's jersey. Tadej Pogačar gained time on Jonas Vingegaard on that stage because he won the stage. Now we go back here, we look at Quinn Simmons chasing Wout van Aert up there. You know Quinn Simmons is like, this is my payback. I have been waiting 3 years for this payback. As Wout van Aert's extending the time a little bit, but he's not getting up to that group of 4 up there. And we're going to start coming into about 40 kilometers to go after the top of the KOM. Now we're coming down the descent. We see on the radio with about 34, 35 kilometers right in that mark, we start seeing teams talking on the radio that there's rain coming. Oh boy, there's rain coming. Wout van Aert's still trying to bridge across to that group, but finally he sits up and goes back. And Quinn Simmons wraps him up there for Pseudo Quickstep. You know Quinn Simmons was like, yeah, 22 Tour de France Stage 6. I remember that. It's payback time. So he's got it wrapped up. The 3 riders up front, they're holding about a 40-second gap. 4 riders, excuse me, holding a 40-second gap to the peloton behind. We're coming in at 25 kilometers to go. Quinn Simmons is throwing down on the pedals big time on this bump. He's got the ugly face on. It's raining, it's pouring, it's been slippery, miserable. It's left, right conditions, islands everywhere. And Quinn Simmons is throwing in his last hurrah here for Liddell Trek. He has raced magnificently. He's covered brakes left, right, and center. He has gone back for his teammate. He has pulled on the front. Now he is trying to close down to the 4 riders here with 25 kilometers to go. He'll do a magnificent job and then he'll pull off. We come into about 19 kilometers to go. This is how crazy it is at the Tour de France here on Stage 17. We see Pascal Ankhorn, Pseudo Quickstep at the front of the peloton. The islands on the left side there. The peloton's narrowing out quickly on the right. They're coming into a right bend, and Pascal Ankerman, Pascal Horn, look at him raise his hand up there to warn everyone. There's something coming up, but you don't know what it is until all of a sudden Pascal Ankhorn stays a little bit to the right because they're coming on one of those funky little roundabouts that they have over in France. And we see the GC guys and the sprinters go over this. We see Johnny Milan, Tim Miller have to go over the center of the island. It's kind of a rocky bump, roundabout center island there. They're jumping over it. We see Tadej Pogačar getting a little bit of air and Jonas Vingegaard there. If Pascal Ankerman doesn't point this out correctly, it could be we lose the 2 best sprinters at the Tour de France right now and the 1st and 2nd on the general classification with Tadej Pogačar and Jonas Vingegaard bunny hopping over this island. Everyone keeps it upright. Pascal Ankerman, fantastic job. He continues pulling on the front. I fast forward you into about 12 kilometers to go. At this moment, Abrahamsen has had it with his breakaway companions. He throws in a big attack. Bergerdo is following on his wheel. He's doing everything he can, but Abrahamsen's doing 60-plus kilometers an hour. In the rain, he's throwing down. We see the head drop between the shoulders there. Bergerdo, he blows up. Abrahamsen's going solo right now. We go back and look at the peloton as we see Israel Premier Tech and UAE Team Emirates have been at the front of the peloton. Tadej Pogačar, Jonas Vingegaard for Visma Bike have always been up and around near the front of the peloton, but at this moment, UAE Team Emirates with Tim Wellens, and I'll call it Sivakov with Tadej Pogačar, are keeping the race leader's yellow jersey as safe as they possibly can on this ridiculously crazy finishing stage of 17 of the Tour de France. As they come further up the road, we start seeing some more action with Luke Durbridge up there. Jaco Alula's taking over the front of the peloton at about 5.5, just under 6 kilometers to go. Jaco Alula driving it on the front. Luka Mezgec. And we're going to, of course, see Dylan Groenewegen and one other rider. I'll call it Elmar right if I remember correctly. Elmar Reindeer. They got 4 riders on the front. They're trying to hold position, and as we start getting under 4.5 kilometers to go, we see Albert Hansen's getting wrapped up. With him getting wrapped up, we're under 5 kilometers to go, so the GC guys, Jonas Vingegaard goes second on general classification. Tadej Pogacar, they pull out of the front group. They're like, we've had enough craziness. We see the peloton going curb to curb. It's all sprinter teams up there. Everything's to go for here now on stage 17, the possible last sprinter stage of the Tour de France. As they're driving it into 3 kilometers to go with the peloton up front, we start seeing that Bahrain Victorious and Jaco Alula are at the front of the peloton. But at this moment, once we start getting into that 3 kilometer mark, oh boy, we start seeing Johnny Milan a little out of position. He's in about 20th. We go a little bit further into 2.1 when we're exiting. Johnny Milan's in about 5th position. We look behind him, 2 teammates a couple spots behind him. There might not be much help because they're like 5 or 6 behind him, excuse me. We look in front of him, he's got 1 teammate and 9 spots in front of him. That's Jasper Stuyvens up there. Jasper Stuyvens is amazing, super domestique. If he's racing 100% for Johnny Milan, we know yesterday nobody was. But today, Jasper Stuyvens is up there doing a magnificent job. He has been spot on. Every bit as good as Quinn Simmons and Tom Squinch. So Jasper Stuyvens, 9 spots in front. We go behind Johnny Milan. Tim Miller's a few spots behind Johnny Milan. We come into the next roundabout. We're going about 1.7 when they exit. Johnny Milan starts moving up. As he's moving up, Jasper Stuyvens is looking over his shoulder. It's a helicopter angle. It's hard to see. Trust me, he's looking over his shoulder because I know what I'm talking about. As he's looking back, you know he's trying to find Johnny Milan, but he can't find him as Johnny's moving up the right side. Tim Miller, Soudal Quickstep in the white Euro Championship jersey, Road Championship jersey back there. He's trying to move up too, but he's still 3 guys behind Johnny Milan as Johnny Milan moves from the right side of the road over to the left, and he locks up with his lead-out man, Jasper Stuyvens now. 2 guys from Lidl Trek up front. Bahrain Victorious is still driving it. Johnny Milan starts going up the left side of the peloton. Bahrain Victorious is in front of him, 2. The second guy on the back, I'm going to guess, is Phil Bauerhaus, their sprinter. They got guys up on the front pulling. Phil Bauerhaus is back here. Johnny Milan's following behind Jasper Stuyvens, who's behind Phil Bauerhaus. As Phil Bauerhaus moves off to the right side there, he gets behind the post-picnic rider. I'll call it Pavel Bittner there, as he's got his 2 trained lead-out guys in front of him. But Jasper Stuyvens, this isn't close enough to the front. Jasper Stuyvens wants to get a little bit more to the front, so he passes Phil Bauerhaus, then he passes Pavel Bittner as Johnny Milan's going by both those guys. He's moving up, and if I back up just a hair, they passed Bert van Leeuwenberg. So Bert van Leeuwenberg's the lead-out man for Tim Miller, who's always been 3 guys behind Johnny Milan, thereabouts, moving up on the right side, trying to find his lead-out man, Bert van Leeuwenberg, who they're just getting ready to pass right now from Johnny Milan and Phil Bauerhaus and Pavel Bittner. Jasper Stuyvens is going to the front. Johnny Milan's looking in fine position as we come into about 1.5, 1.3 kilometers to go. He's nearing the front. Now things start getting really interesting as we're coming into 1.2 kilometers to go, and Lotto Destiny is on the front. Arnold De Lee is their sprinter, so they're driving it on the front right now. They got Drisner on the front, I'll call it, and then we start looking in the picture back there. Brant Van Moor and Arnold De Lee's in the picture. Lidl Trek's done a fantastic job. Jasper Stuyvens looking a little bit, checking out, making sure that Johnny Milan's in good position. And then just behind Johnny Milan, well, FDJ rider Cyril Barth, as Johnny Milan was passing everyone, he locked onto his back wheel. So now we come into that 1.2 kilometer to go, and we know Lotto Destiny's on the front. We flip to the front of the peloton now, and they're not quite under the Flamme Rouge. Remember, they're not quite under the Flamme Rouge. They're at about 1.1 or 1K and 500 meters from the Flamme Rouge. We see the front picture, and then the camera flips to the top helicopter angle as there's a crash in back. Cofidis, Alex Reynard, I'll call it, he was coming up the right side. As he was coming up the right, Cyril Barth was coming up the left because he was back there on the wheel of Johnny Milan. But in between them, Pavel Bittner, I'll call it, there from Post Picnic NL, he was in the middle. Lexi Reynard came from the right side over to the left, and then they're bumping hard. As they're bumping hard, Cyril Barth is coming in from FDJ from the left side to the right. Now we see that there's a chaos happening right now as a crash. Huge pile goes down. First, we see, of course, that it's Pavel Bittner going down. It's Cyril Barth from FDJ that's sliding. When we look at the Uno X rider sliding into the pile as he tried to lock it up, his bike's going all over. He hits the pile. Behind him is Tim Miller. He never made it to the front. If I back up the camera a little bit, when it was Johnny Milan passing everywhere, Tim Miller had options of going left and right. He didn't pick quick enough, and now he's in the danger zone. He's right behind the Uno X rider as he's crashing. The Uno X rider hits the ground. Tim Miller does some amazing job to avoid the Uno X rider, but now if we take you over to the left side, Israel Premier Tech riders are riding the fencing, and now they've crashed off of the fencing and they're coming down straight in front of Tim Allaire. Underneath them is Cyril Barth from FDJ, who was in the beginning of these crash mess here, and he's still in front of Tim Allaire. Tim Allaire is coming up to the Israel Premier Tech rider that is crashing in front of him and sliding as the Israel Premier Tech rider and bike slide past Tim Allaire. Tim Allaire just barely avoids that with some more maneuvering, but you can't maneuver much because it's raining and slippery out. So Tim Allaire's locking up the brakes. He comes right up to the FDJ rider, Cyril Barth, that not the cause, but was the beginning rider to go down. And it started before the Flamme Rouge, and now we're 50 meters after the Flamme Rouge. They've been sliding for 75, 100 meters. And Tim Allaire gets the bike under control and gets it able to stop. But he's watching the sprinters go up the road at this moment when we see his hand raise. We go back to that back of the crash. We look on the right side. Baniam Girmay was going down on the right side. He got caught up with two-door cycling as he tried to pass on the right. Those two locked up and then synchronized their crash. And as they're high side and going over the side of the pile there, Baniam Girmay crashes on the right side. We go back up to the front of the peloton. Remember, guys, it was under 1K to go that they finally, bodies came to stop. Now we're at about 815 meters to go. And we see Lotto Destiny is on the front of the peloton. Brent Van Moor. You look over to the right side. Fedorov is on the right side. This is important. Ballerini sitting in a fantastic position. And Fedorov, his teammate. So with Fedorov and Ballerini, Fedorov's going to slide back behind Ballerini there. And Johnny Milan's behind Fedorov sitting in fourth position. They're coming into the last left bend here as Johnny Milan sitting fourth. Behind Johnny Milan is Arnaud Delis, Lotto Destiny. Just over to the side of Arnaud Delis, that's Jordi Mayus from Bora Hansgrohe. Jordi Mayus through this left bend is going to start passing Johnny Milan, and as they're coming out, Jordi Mayus is going to slot himself into fourth position, and Johnny Milan's going to go in the fifth. Brent Van Moor is throwing everything into it as he exits with about 550 meters to go on the right side of the fencing. He's going Mach speed, everything he possibly can for Arnaud Delis that's back there behind Johnny Milan, but Fedorov is sitting in third position. Fedorov starts coming up on the side-by-side there of his teammate Ballerini. He looks over at him. You know he's yelling, "Get on my wheel, I'm going." He hits out at 500 meters to go. Ballerini locks onto his wheel in second place. Jordi Mayus is sitting third. Johnny Milan is sitting fourth. Arnaud Delis is back there. We're coming into about 300 meters to go. Up front as Fedorov, Yevgeny Fedorov starts to blow for Astana. His teammate Davide Ballerini throws in an acceleration at 300, just a hair above or below 300. With that acceleration and Jordi Mayus locked on his wheel and Johnny Milan in third, they're coming in at 225 meters to go. When Johnny Milan, Lidl-Trek, throws in his acceleration, quickly comes by the left side there of Jordi Mayus. Now he's coming up side by side to the race leader right now of Davide Ballerini from Astana. Once he gets up to the left side there of Astana, we look behind him. It's Arnaud Delis. We're coming into about 175, 150 meters to go. Johnny Milan moves just a hair over to the left. It starts to look like it's going to overlap the wheel. Possibly did overlap the wheel of Arnaud Delis. So Delis' leg flies out as he's trying to hold his bike. You see his knee come out and his balancing goes a little bit sideways as he's getting it under control going to the left. Remember, they're doing 65 kilometers an hour at this moment. Arnaud Delis saves it, but Johnny Milan still accelerating on the front. Jordi Mayus, with that opening hesitation or almost crash there of Arnaud Delis, Jordi Mayus slots into second place as Johnny Milan's pulling at the front of the peloton right now, and he's overtaken the front there of Davide Ballerini. Now he's leading with about 100 meters to go. As he's leading, Jordi Mayus is sitting on his wheel. On the left side, Tobias Anderson back there is coming up the left side over on the left side of Arnaud Delis, who's starting to fade now because he had to do everything he could to save it. Johnny Milan's throwing everything into it. It's 50 meters to go. Jordi Mayus starts his acceleration on the left side of Johnny Milan. He quickly starts coming up to the back wheel, up to about to the crank arm there, and then Johnny Milan throws his bike at the line. Jordi Mayus does the same thing, but not enough time to be able to beat Johnny Milan, who wins his second stage here for Lidl-Trek and grabs 50 points on the stage. That'll add him to a 72-point lead over Tadej Pogačar at the end of today's stage 17. Second on the stage is Jordi Mayus, as I told you. Third on the stage going to be Tobias Anderson back there, who did a great job of coming from the back to get himself a podium here on stage 17. When it's all said and done, when we start looking at the back of the pictures, Baniam Girmay is still picking himself up on the right side of the road, but we will see him finish the stage. The race leader's yellow jersey didn't change hand. Tadej Pogacar, Jonas Vingegaard finished with Tim Miller leading their group in. Clearly, Tim Miller is not going to be happy about today's stage. When we see Liddell Trek riders back there, Thibaut Nice on the right side. We see Quinn Simmons in the middle, and on the left, Tom Squinge, and they're all pointing there to Quinn Simmons, who did a fantastic ride on today's stage. No doubt about it, you did a fantastic ride, and you should be sending me a signed jersey over here to my house after giving you guys some tactics about yesterday's stage 16 here at the Tour de France. When we look at the interview from Johnny Milan, he says, of course, he thanks all his teammates. Profusely does he thank all his teammates. And Johnny, all I'm thinking about is right now at this moment, yesterday you were chasing breaks, today you were sitting on breaks the way you should be doing it, and your teammates did all the work for you. And I agree with you 100%. It was perfect on today's stage, as perfect as a sprinter stage could be in the rain anyways. And you owe a ton of the points and the green jersey that you're still wearing on your shoulders at this moment to your teammates. But you also owe me a signed jersey. So I expect it to be sent over. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next edition real soon.